1. The enigmatic pianist. Isabelle Thorne's slender fingers danced gracefully over the strings of her violin, coaxing a hauntingly beautiful melody into the crisp evening air. The city park, with its lush greenery and serene atmosphere, was her sanctuary. She often performed here, losing herself in the music that flowed from her soul. The park was her stage, the twilight her spotlight, and the audience, a mix of regulars and passers-by, her silent admirers. Tonight, however, felt different. A sense of anticipation crackled in the air, mingling with the scent of blooming flowers and the distant hum of city life. As she reached the crescendo of her piece, her eyes briefly closed, letting the music guide her. When she opened them again, she noticed him, an enigmatic figure standing under a lamppost at the edge of the crowd. He was tall and lean, his posture exuding an air of quiet intensity. His eyes, a piercing shade of blue, were fixed on her with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. The man stepped forward as she finished her performance, his presence commanding yet unassuming. The audience applauded, but Isabelle's attention was entirely on the stranger. He approached with measured steps, stopping just a few feet away. "Your music is captivating," he said, his voice deep and resonant. "It speaks to the soul." Isabelle felt a blush creep up her cheeks. "Thank you," she replied softly, lowering her violin. "Music is my way of expressing what words cannot." He nodded, his gaze unwavering. "I'm Alexander Knight," he introduced himself, extending a hand. "Isabelle Thorne," she replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm, yet gentle. "Do you play?" A shadow crossed his face, and for a moment, his eyes darkened. "I used to," he admitted. "Once upon a time." Curiosity sparked within Isabelle. "Why did you stop?" Alexander hesitated, as if weighing his words carefully. "Life has a way of steering us away from our passions," he said finally. "But your performance tonight, it reminded me of what I once loved. Would you play for me?" Isabelle asked, surprising herself with her boldness. Alexander looked taken aback, his eyes searching hers for a long moment. Then, he gave a small nod. "Perhaps another time," he said, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. Their conversation was interrupted by a group of children who rushed up to Isabelle, eager to tell her how much they enjoyed her performance. When she turned back to Alexander, he was gone, melted into the evening shadows like a phantom. For the next few days, Isabelle found herself thinking about Alexander Knight. His presence had stirred something within her, a mixture of intrigue and longing. She couldn't help but wonder about the stories hidden behind those enigmatic blue eyes. Then, one evening, as she was setting up for her performance, she noticed him again. He stood near the same lamppost, his expression unreadable. This time, he held a worn leather satchel in his hand. "May I join you?" he asked, his voice carrying over the soft murmurs of the crowd. Isabelle's heart skipped a beat. "Of course," she replied, stepping aside to make room for him. Alexander pulled a well-loved piano roll from his satchel and placed it on the nearby public piano. His fingers hovered over the keys for a moment, as if reacquainting themselves with an old friend. Then, he began to play. The first notes were hesitant, almost tentative. But as he continued, the music grew in confidence and strength. It was a haunting melody, filled with raw emotion and pain. Isabelle watched in awe as Alexander poured his heart into the music, his eyes closed, his face a mask of concentration. When he finished, the crowd erupted into applause. Alexander opened his eyes and looked directly at Isabelle. In that moment, she saw not just the enigmatic pianist, but a man with a soul as deeply scarred as his music. Their eyes met, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. Isabelle knew that their paths were now intertwined, bound by the music that spoke to their souls. And so, their journey began, a journey that would take them through the highs and lows of love, loss, and the healing power of music. Little did they know, their lives would never be the same again. 2. Harmonies and discords. The days following their impromptu duet saw a remarkable change in the dynamic of the park. Regulars and newcomers alike gathered in greater numbers, drawn by the magnetic performances of Isabelle Thorne and Alexander Knight. Their collaborative music, a blend of violin and piano, created an ethereal atmosphere that enveloped the audience in a cocoon of emotion. Despite their seamless musical harmony, Isabelle and Alexander's personal dynamics were far from smooth. Their contrasting personalities often led to both creative sparks and fiery disagreements. "You're rushing the tempo," Alexander said one evening, his tone more critical than he intended. "This piece needs to breathe." Isabelle's eyes flashed with frustration. "And you're dragging the rhythm. It's supposed to be lively, not a funeral march." Their differences were stark. Isabelle was passionate and spontaneous, often letting her emotions guide her music. Alexander, on the other hand, was precise and meticulous, his need for control a reflection of the turmoil within. Their rehearsals were a battleground of wills, yet the tension also fueled their performances, adding a raw intensity that captivated their audience. One afternoon, after a particularly heated argument, Isabelle stormed off, her violin clutched tightly in her hand. She wandered the park, seeking solace among the trees and flowers. She found a quiet spot by the lake, the water's gentle ripples calming her turbulent emotions. "Why does he have to be so infuriating?" she thought, tears of frustration welling up in her eyes. Just when she thought they were making progress, they would clash again, each unwilling to yield. Lost in her thoughts, she didn't notice Alexander approaching until he was standing beside her. He was silent for a moment, gazing out at the lake, his expression unreadable. "I'm sorry," he said finally, his voice soft. "I didn't mean to be so harsh. It's just, music is all I have left. I want it to be perfect." Isabelle looked up at him, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes. "I understand," she said gently. "But perfection isn't always about precision. Sometimes, it's about letting go and feeling the music." Alexander sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You're right," he admitted. "I guess I'm just afraid of losing control." She reached out, placing a hand on his arm. "We're a team, Alexander. We can find a balance if we work together." A tentative smile tugged at his lips. "I suppose we can try." Their conversation marked a turning point in their partnership. They began to find a rhythm that suited them both, blending Isabelle's passion with Alexander's precision. Their rehearsals were still filled with spirited debates, but they learned to appreciate each other's perspectives, finding a harmony in their differences. As they spent more time together, Isabelle's curiosity about Alexander's past grew. He was a man of many layers, each one more complex than the last. One evening, after a particularly moving performance, she decided to broach the subject. "Alexander," she began, as they packed up their instruments, "why did you stop playing?" He paused, his hands stilling on the piano keys. "It's a long story," he said quietly. "I'm not going anywhere," she replied, her eyes steady on his. He took a deep breath, his gaze distant. "I used to be part of a renowned orchestra," he began. "Music was my life. But then I lost someone very dear to me. The grief was overwhelming, and I couldn't find the will to play anymore. Every note reminded me of her." Isabelle's heart ached for him. "I'm so sorry," she said softly. "I can't imagine how painful that must have been." He nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Playing with you, it's the first time I've felt that old spark again. But the fear of losing it all over again is still there." She reached out, taking his hand in hers. "We'll take it one step at a time," she said. "You don't have to face it alone." In that moment, a fragile bond of trust began to form between them. Isabelle realized that beneath Alexander's stoic exterior was a man deeply scarred by loss, and her compassion only grew stronger. Their journey was far from over, but they had taken the first steps towards healing and understanding. Together, they would navigate the harmonies and discords of their lives, their music a testament to the power of love and resilience. 3. The Haunted Melody. The days grew shorter and the nights colder as autumn painted the park in hues of gold and crimson. Isabelle and Alexander's bond deepened with each passing day, their music now a seamless blend of their souls. Yet, beneath the surface, Alexander's haunted past cast a shadow over their growing connection. One evening, after a particularly intense rehearsal, Isabelle found Alexander sitting alone by the old oak tree where they often practiced. His usual composed demeanor was replaced with a look of deep contemplation, his fingers absent-mindedly tracing the grooves of the piano keys. "Alexander," she called softly, approaching him. "Are you all right?" He looked up, his eyes dark and troubled. "I've been thinking a lot about the past," he admitted. "About her?" Isabelle sat down beside him, her heart aching for the pain she saw in his eyes. "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked gently. He took a deep breath, the weight of his memories pressing down on him. "Her name was Emily," he began, his voice tinged with sadness. "We met at a music conservatory. She was a violinist, like you. Her music was pure magic. We fell in love, and for a while, life was perfect." Isabelle listened intently, her hand resting on his arm in a gesture of comfort. "But then, she fell ill," he continued, his voice breaking. "A rare disease that took her from me far too soon. I was devastated. I couldn't play without thinking of her. Every note felt like a knife to my heart." Tears welled up in Isabelle's eyes as she imagined the depth of his loss. "I'm so sorry, Alexander," she whispered. He nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I tried to move on, but the music was always there, a constant reminder of what I'd lost. I pushed it all away, hoping the pain would fade. But it never did." Isabelle squeezed his hand, her own heart breaking for him. "You don't have to carry this burden alone," she said softly. "We can face it together." Alexander looked at her, his eyes filled with gratitude and something else, hope. "Thank you, Isabelle," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You've brought light back into my life, more than you'll ever know." Their conversation marked a turning point for Alexander. He began to open up more about his past, sharing memories of Emily and the love they had shared. Each story was tinged with both joy and sorrow, but with Isabelle by his side, he found the strength to confront his pain. One night, as they sat under the stars after another successful performance, Alexander reached into his satchel and pulled out a sheet of music. "This was Emily's favorite piece," he said, handing it to Isabelle. "I haven't played it since she passed. But I think I'm ready now." Isabelle took the sheet music, her heart swelling with emotion. "Let's play it together," she suggested, her voice steady. They moved to the piano, the sheet music spread out before them. Isabelle lifted her violin, and Alexander placed his hands on the keys. As they began to play, the haunting melody filled the night air, a beautiful yet sorrowful tribute to a love lost but never forgotten. The music flowed effortlessly, a poignant expression of their shared grief and the healing they had found in each other. As the final notes faded into the night, Alexander looked at Isabelle, his eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and peace. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "For helping me find my way back to the music." Isabelle smiled, tears streaming down her face. "We'll keep playing, Alexander," she said. "For Emily, and for us." In that moment, they both knew that their journey was far from over. The haunted melody of Alexander's past would always be a part of him, but with Isabelle by his side, he had found a way to embrace it and move forward. Together, they would continue to navigate the harmonies and discords of their lives, their music a testament to the enduring power of love and the strength to heal from even the deepest wounds. 4. Crescendo of passion. The crisp autumn air gave way to the chill of winter, and the park was soon blanketed in a soft layer of snow. Despite the cold, Isabelle and Alexander's music continued to draw crowds, their performances now tinged with a deeper, more profound emotion. The bond between them had grown stronger, their passion for music mirrored in their growing feelings for each other. One evening, after an especially moving performance, Isabelle and Alexander decided to take a walk through the snow-covered park. The moonlight cast a silvery glow over the landscape, and their breath formed small clouds in the frigid air. "Tonight was incredible," Isabelle said, her eyes shining with excitement. "I could feel the connection between us, like our souls were in perfect harmony." Alexander nodded, his eyes reflecting the same exhilaration. "I've never felt anything like it," he admitted. "It's as if the music has a life of its own, binding us together." They walked in comfortable silence for a while, their footsteps crunching softly in the snow. As they reached a secluded spot near the lake, Alexander stopped and turned to face Isabelle, his expression serious. "Isabelle," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "there's something I need to tell you." Her heart skipped a beat. "What is it, Alexander?" He took a deep breath, his eyes searching hers. "I've fallen in love with you," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "From the moment I heard you play, I knew there was something special about you. You've brought light back into my life, and I can't imagine my world without you." Isabelle's heart swelled with emotion, tears of joy glistening in her eyes. "Oh, Alexander," she said, stepping closer to him. "I love you too. You've shown me a depth of feeling I never knew existed. Our music, our connection, it's something truly magical." Without another word, Alexander pulled her into his arms, their lips meeting in a passionate kiss. The world around them seemed to fade away, leaving only the warmth of their embrace and the electric charge of their connection. As they pulled apart, breathless and smiling, Alexander took Isabelle's hand. "I want to show you something," he said, leading her towards a small cabin nestled among the trees. The cabin was cozy and warm, a fire crackling in the hearth. It was filled with musical instruments and sheet music, a testament to Alexander's dedication to his craft. "This is where I come to escape," he explained. "It's where I feel closest to Emily, and now, it's where I feel closest to you." Isabelle looked around, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "Thank you for sharing this with me." Alexander smiled, his eyes filled with affection. "I want you to be a part of every aspect of my life, Isabelle. You mean everything to me." They spent the evening in the cabin, playing music and talking about their hopes and dreams. The firelight cast a warm glow over their faces, and the intensity of their emotions grew with each passing moment. As the night deepened, their conversations became more intimate, their touches more tender. The music they played took on a new depth, their passion for each other infusing every note with a powerful, undeniable energy. Their relationship reached a crescendo, a peak of intensity and emotion that left them both breathless and yearning for more. They made love for the first time, their bodies moving in perfect harmony, their souls entwined in a dance of pure passion. In the aftermath, as they lay entwined in each other's arms, Isabelle felt a profound sense of contentment. "This is where I belong," she whispered, her head resting on Alexander's chest. "With you." Alexander kissed the top of her head, his heart swelling with love. "And I with you," he replied. "Together, we can face anything." Their love had reached a new level, a crescendo of passion that strengthened their bond and deepened their connection. They knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but with each other, they felt invincible. As the winter winds howled outside, they fell asleep in each other's arms, their hearts beating in perfect unison. The future was uncertain, but their love was a symphony that would endure, a melody that would resonate through the challenges and triumphs of their lives. 5. The symphony unraveled. Winter's chill began to thaw, giving way to the first whispers of spring. Isabelle and Alexander's relationship had blossomed into something beautiful, their music a testament to their deepening love. However, as the days grew warmer, the shadows of Alexander's past began to creep back, threatening to unravel the delicate symphony they had created together. One afternoon, as they prepared for another performance in the park, Alexander received a letter that left him visibly shaken. Isabelle watched as he read it, his face paling and his hands trembling. "Alexander, what's wrong?" she asked, concern etched in her voice. He looked up at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination. "It's from Emily's father," he said quietly. "He wants to meet with me. There's something he needs to discuss, something about Emily's death." Isabelle's heart ached for him. "Do you want me to come with you?" He shook his head. "No, I need to do this alone." "But thank you, Isabelle. Your support means everything to me." The next day, Alexander traveled to meet Emily's father, leaving Isabelle to worry and wonder. She spent the day restless, her mind filled with questions and fears. When he finally returned, the look on his face told her that something was terribly wrong. "Alexander, what happened?" she asked, rushing to his side. He sat down heavily, his expression haunted. "He told me that Emily's death wasn't as straightforward as I thought," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "She was struggling with depression, and she took her own life. Her father blames me for not seeing the signs, for not being there for her." Isabelle felt a wave of shock and sorrow wash over her. "Oh, Alexander, I'm so sorry," she said, wrapping her arms around him. "But it's not your fault. You couldn't have known." He pulled away, his eyes filled with anguish. "But what if it is? What if I could have done something? What if I was too absorbed in my own world to see her pain?" The days that followed were filled with tension and uncertainty. Alexander became increasingly distant, consumed by guilt and self-doubt. Isabelle tried to reach out to him, but he seemed to withdraw further into himself, the walls around his heart growing ever higher. Their music, once a source of joy and connection, now felt strained and disjointed. The audience sensed the change, their applause more subdued, their smiles more tentative. Isabelle knew that their symphony was beginning to unravel, and she was desperate to find a way to mend it. One evening, after a particularly difficult rehearsal, Isabelle confronted Alexander. "We need to talk," she said firmly. "You can't keep shutting me out." He looked at her, his eyes filled with pain and frustration. "I don't know how to fix this, Isabelle," he admitted. "I don't know how to make things right." "We can't change the past," she said gently. "But we can face it together. You don't have to carry this burden alone." He sighed, his shoulders slumping. "I'm scared, Isabelle. I'm scared of losing you the way I lost Emily." "You won't lose me," she said, taking his hands in hers. "But you have to let me in. We're stronger together." Slowly, Alexander began to open up about his feelings, sharing his fears and his guilt. Isabelle listened, offering her support and understanding. It was a painful process, but with each conversation, they began to rebuild the trust that had been shaken. One night, as they sat by the piano, Alexander looked at Isabelle with a newfound determination. "I want to play Emily's piece again," he said. "But this time, I want to play it for her, to honor her memory and find some closure." Isabelle nodded, her heart swelling with pride. "We'll do it together." Their performance that evening was filled with raw emotion, their music a powerful tribute to Emily's memory. As they played, the audience could feel the depth of their pain and the strength of their love. It was a cathartic experience, a way for Alexander to confront his demons and begin to heal. When the final notes faded into the night, Alexander turned to Isabelle, his eyes filled with gratitude and love. "Thank you," he said softly. "For believing in me, for standing by me." She smiled, tears of relief and joy streaming down her face. "We'll get through this, Alexander. Together." The road to healing was far from over, but they had taken a crucial step forward. Their symphony, though unraveled, was being rewoven with threads of resilience and hope. And as they faced the future together, they knew that their love would continue to be a powerful and enduring melody. 6. The final note. Spring arrived in full bloom, painting the park in vibrant shades of green and bursts of colorful flowers. Isabelle and Alexander's journey had been tumultuous, but through their trials, they had forged a bond that was stronger than ever. Their music, once fraught with tension, now flowed with a seamless grace, reflecting the deep connection they had nurtured. Despite their progress, the shadows of the past still lingered, casting occasional clouds over their newfound happiness. Alexander, though healing, continued to grapple with guilt and loss. Isabelle, ever supportive, remained by his side, offering her love and understanding. One bright afternoon, they received an invitation to perform at a prestigious music festival. The opportunity was both thrilling and daunting, representing a chance to showcase their unique blend of talents to a wider audience. They accepted with excitement, knowing that this performance could be a defining moment in their journey. In the weeks leading up to the festival, they poured their hearts into rehearsals, perfecting their repertoire and honing their chemistry. Their relationship, strengthened by their shared passion and mutual support, blossomed into something even more profound. The music they created together was a testament to their resilience and love, a beautiful symphony that resonated with anyone who listened. The night of the festival arrived, and the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Musicians and music lovers from all over gathered to celebrate the art that bound them. Isabelle and Alexander, dressed in elegant attire, took the stage to a wave of applause. The spotlight shone on them, illuminating their determined faces and glistening instruments. As they began to play, the audience was immediately captivated. Their music was a masterful blend of emotional depth and technical brilliance, a reflection of their personal journey. Each note told a story of love, loss, healing, and hope. The haunting melody of Emily's piece, woven seamlessly into their set, brought tears to many eyes, including their own. As they reached the climax of their performance, Isabelle and Alexander exchanged a look filled with unspoken emotion. The final piece they played was an original composition, a collaboration that encapsulated their shared experiences and dreams. It was a powerful and moving testament to their journey, a declaration of their love and resilience. The final note hung in the air, a poignant reminder of everything they had overcome. The audience erupted into a standing ovation, their applause a thunderous affirmation of the couple's triumph. Isabelle and Alexander took their bows, their hearts filled with a mixture of relief, joy, and gratitude. Backstage, as the applause continued, Alexander pulled Isabelle into his arms. "We did it," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "We really did it." Isabelle smiled through her tears, her heart swelling with pride and love. "Yes, we did," she replied, holding him tightly. "And I couldn't have done it without you." Their victory at the festival marked a turning point in their lives. Offers for more performances and collaborations poured in, and their music reached new heights of recognition and acclaim. But beyond the professional success, it was their personal growth and the strength of their relationship that truly defined their journey. One sunny afternoon, as they walked hand in hand through the park where their story began, Alexander stopped and looked deeply into Isabelle's eyes. "There's something I want to ask you," he said, his voice trembling slightly. Isabelle's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" He took a deep breath, his eyes filled with love and determination. Isabelle Thorne, you've brought light into my life, helped me heal, and shown me what true love means. Will you marry me? Tears of joy streamed down Isabelle's face as she nodded, unable to find her voice. She threw her arms around him, their hearts beating in perfect unison. Yes, she finally whispered. Yes, Alexander, I will. Their engagement was a celebration of their journey, a symbol of their commitment to facing the future together. They continued to make music, their love a constant source of inspiration and strength. Their story, filled with harmonies and discords, had reached a beautiful crescendo, but the melody of their love would play on forever. As they stood together, the sun setting behind them, Isabelle and Alexander knew that their symphony was far from over. The final note of this chapter was just the beginning of a new, even more beautiful movement. Together, they would continue to compose a life filled with love, music, and endless possibilities.